Hello everybody, this is AK. I'm back. So I published a blog post earlier today, and this is the video or audio version of that blog post. It's more audio than video, I suppose. And just an update, right? And just a few things to talk about. Things have settled into a new normal for me, so I'm more settled now. And in this new normal, a big change is my expenses. Expenses have increased by 3 times or 4 times. And in this new normal, at least one person is very happy. One entity is very happy, and that's UOB. UOB should be very pleased because I exceed the $500 minimum spending required on the credit card, the one card, by a large amount, to get extra interest on my savings in the one account, right? So this increase in expenses is likely to be part of the new normal and not transitional, right? And I said in the blog post that fortunately my passive income is well buffered, which means I'm able to absorb the current higher expenses, right? So my passive income exceeds my expenses by quite a bit, right? Regular readers or listeners would know. Of course, I'm crossing fingers that things do not worsen, right? I'm still not sleeping well, but fortunately, if you have been following me for a long time, you know I'm able to take refuge in virtual worlds. I do that a lot, and this has helped save me, right, many years ago, and it still works for me today, right? So spending time alone, focusing on things that have nothing to do with the real world, right? That's very therapeutic for me, right? And in a YouTube video I made recently, not too long ago, I said that I could feel apathy setting in when it comes to financial matters, and I can say now that apathy has definitely set in, right? I still shake myself once in a while to shake the apathy out from my system, but it comes back, right? And all I can say is that fortunately I have everything on autopilot when it comes to money matters, more or less on autopilot, right? So I can afford to be apathetic, right? For months or maybe even years, I don't know, right? But writing is therapeutic to me, and I think of it as just talking to myself, which helps to calm my mind. And I try to make sense of things, right, through writing, right? And now YouTube video making seems to be therapeutic as well. So let's hope it stays that way, right? So let's talk about a few things other than my life, right? So T-bill, right? Number one, T-bill. The yield, the cutoff yield has been dropping, right? In the last auction, T-bill cutoff yield was 3.34% per annum. And I said, well, it could have been worse, right? Well, 3.34% per annum, not too bad. I got my non-competitive bid filled, and that's using cash. So 3.34% is still better than what regular savings accounts pay us, right? But I said also that if we can get 4% per annum, like we can get with the UOB one account, we should maximize that first, right? High yield savings accounts, right? So with the UOB one account, it's up to 150K for the extra interest. And so with T-bill yields declining and also interest rates in fixed deposits declining, high yield savings accounts should have priority when parking out extra money, right? It only makes sense. There is also the added benefit of having liquidity, right? So it only makes sense. But there's also another point that is that I use my CPF OA money to buy T-bills, and I might stop I might actually stop doing this because the break-even cutoff yield for 6 months T-bill is 3.33% per annum in case we lose another 2 months of CPF OA interest. And I am hazarding a guess that T-bill cutoff yields will come in even lower than 3.33% per annum the next time for all future auctions, quite possibly. So I'll just transfer the money from CPF IA to CPF OA when the T-bills mature and just leave the money in the CPF OA. Right, so it's one less thing for me to juggle, and I said, well, it isn't a tragedy really. I mean, the difference is not a big deal. And number two is Singapore savings bonds. 10-year average yield on Singapore savings bonds is also declining. And I bought some Singapore savings bond offered last month, and that had a 10 years average yield of 3.22% per annum. And I said back then it wasn't too bad. You know, if yields keep dropping, then locking that in. It isn't too bad. I mean, it's not a big deal, but it's still quite decent. Right, this month the offer is for a 10-year average yield of 3.1% per annum. So 3.1% per annum, lower than the 3.22% per annum last month. Right. I mean, 3.1% per annum is still above the 3% per annum average interest I would get for doing voluntary contribution to my CPF account. But it's not by much. It's not by much. So I don't think we are going to miss out on a good deal or something like this, right? If we don't buy the Singapore savings bond this time round. But of course, our circumstances are different. We are all different individuals with different circumstances. So for some people, 3.1% per annum will still make sense, especially if they have a 10-year horizon or they don't want money to be locked up in their CPF account for a longer time, especially for younger adults, right? But for people in my age group, I mean, 2 to 3 years later, I have access to my CPF savings, right? So that's why I say it depends on our circumstances. So it might work for some people. Number three is DBS, UOB, and OCBC. So I said in my blog post that things seem to have settled down, right? The stock prices of our local banks, excuse me, they seem to have settled down and they have recaptured their supports, right? So DBS at $35. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, I had to stop the recording just now to get a cough drop. So if you hear some strange noises in the background, that's me sucking on a cough drop. Okay. So anyway, DBS, UOB, and OCBC, I said that their stock prices have settled and they've recaptured their support. DBS is at like $35, OCBC at $14, UOB at $30. Those are the support levels, immediate support, which became resistance last week when prices broke down, remember? And I say we want to see prices breaking this resistance and recapture the support. So it seems that Mr. Market might have come to terms with the eventual weakening of net interest income for all three banks, because interest rates are set to decline, right? Mr. Market might have come to terms with that, and that our local banks have other sources of income and are likely to continue growing as they retain about half of their earnings, right? And distributing the other half to shareholders as dividends. So I said that this means that even for people who paid higher prices for stocks of DBS, OCBC, and UOB, eventually their investments will become much more valuable. So this is about time in the market, right? So if we have a long-term horizon and we are investing for the long term, for the dividends, for the long-term growth of all three banks, I think that's very little to worry, right? To worry about. But still, I say do not throw caution to the wind right? Being paid while we wait is a good thing, right? But it's not a bad thing at all. But do not throw caution to the wind, right? The world is not in a good place now, right? So many things have gone wrong and could get worse, and many things could still go wrong, right? We are fortunate to be in Singapore, but Singapore is not shock proof, and neither are we, right? So keep our kitchen sink safe. Don't throw in the kitchen sink yet. All right, Mr. Market could go into a depression suddenly and without warning, right? And that is when we roll out our war chest. And in our war chest, we should find our kitchen sink as well, and that's when we throw that in, right? So remember what I always say: don't be overly optimistic, don't be overly pessimistic. Be pragmatic, be prudent, and be patient. Okay, so if AK can do it, so can you. Bye bye.